Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Eirik. Welcome to my studio and my YouTube channel. You are watching an excerpt, a short section of my Patreon exclusive series, available to my patrons who support me with $5 or more. The full-length video is 40 minutes long and full of valuable information. To see the full episode, you have to go on my Patreon page, patreon.com/Eirik Arnesen. There's a link in the description below. You have to be a Patreon supporter of $5 or more in order to see the videos. Once you become a supporter, you will instantly have access to the videos. You will find the videos by clicking the post button here, and then the videos should appear if you have pledged $5 or more. If you're looking for a specific video, you can refine your search at the top of the page here. For now, however, while you're here, sit back and relax, enjoy some royalty-free music, and me sculpting the contours of my half-life-size sculpture. So today's episode will cover how to accomplish complex contours. We will work on the rhythm of the legs and how to block legs in. We'll talk about variations in contours to describe flesh or bone. And finally, in order to lead us nicely into the next episode, we'll talk about how contours affect internal information. We will start with the second of the above mentioned, which is the rhythm of the legs. As you can see, I've blocked in the stand leg, in other words, the straight leg that carries the weight in the kind of pose that I've chosen, which is a type of pose that's called a contrapposto. It's a little different for the balance leg because it can be bent in all kinds of directions, but for the stand leg there are certain rhythms we can follow in order for the leg to be visually pleasing. By rhythms, I'm talking about how different parts of the contour connects with each other. This is something that I'm constantly thinking about as I'm blocking things in. To get the most pleasing rhythm, I might have to diverge slightly from what my model presents me with, but if you do this, you must know why you are doing it and to what end you are doing it. The best way to describe it is that you want to look for a kind of bow tie connection between the upper part of the leg and the lower part of the leg. The contour on the outside of the thigh should take you inwards towards the inside of the calf, which in turn should take you down to the ankle on the outside. Starting from the inside of the leg, you should be able to follow a line from the upper inside part of the thigh to the outside of the knee, along the outside contour of the upper calf and down to the inside ankle bone. When you see me making small adjustments, small pieces of clay, removing a little here, adding a little here, I'm trying to get closer and closer to making this rhythm a reality in this sculpture. There are rhythms all over which you can take advantage of, not only to slightly adjust the anatomy of your model in order to arrive at a more pleasing result, but you can also look for connections like this on your model in order to make sure your sculpture and model are the same, essentially. It's not a surefire way, but neither is anything we can do in order to achieve perfect accuracy, sadly. I consider it in the same wheelhouse as looking for how the smaller forms within the larger shapes fit into the space they are meant to occupy, and if they can occupy that space without needing to be distorted in order to fit. These are just strategies, and strategies are always good to have, and even though none of them guarantee success, they'll give you some tools in order to course correct in case that's needed. Now we can hit up the first point I mentioned, which was how to achieve complex contours. As my figure grows in width here, I'm forced to pay attention. If my contours do not move now, I'll hit overall width, and then my contours will never move. I'm looking to solve all my issues underneath the surface. This means that while I'm still too narrow here, some places that used to be contour will get swapped for others, and areas that continue to be contour gets more movement forced out of them. Movement in contour is a subtle thing that's hard to observe, so in order to observe it properly, or as easily as I can manage, I do a lot of my analyzing while looking for internal information. In other words, I locate the information between the contours. Its movement is easier to see as it tends to go left and right, and it's a little bit more obvious. And once the internal information is properly placed, I can follow it to create my contours. It will always be valuable to keep in mind that contours are not simply contours. They're also internal information from a different view. And once there is enough space in between the contours for the internal information to begin being explored, I can properly begin making sure my contours move the way they should as well. The key to making this technique a success is to work underneath the surface. Even though I'm far below the surface and my sculpture's upper torso is way too narrow, I've already begun developing some of the information which later will help me place my contours in space. Let's thank today's sponsors, my Patreon supporters on Patreon who have ensured the continued existence of this channel and allowed me to upgrade my gear bit by bit, making better looking and better sounding content for all of you watching. If you are interested in supporting the channel or perhaps interested in getting personal feedback on your sculptures from me, then Patreon is the place for you. You can get in-depth feedback on techniques and how you can apply them to your own work. Anything sculpture related goes. We can talk about armatures, supplies, mold making, anything you need help with in your sculpting endeavors. So check it out, there's a link in the description below. And again, thank you so much to those of you who have given generously and supported me. It really means the world. Some areas are easier than others when it comes to placing contours in space. A key aspect is how much width a given section has. The wider it is, the more room there is to slowly grow and adjust the contours and find the internal information as you go along. A thinner section, like the leg, therefore becomes more difficult than the body, for example. And the arms are even more difficult because they are thinner. The issue most people bump into is that the legs and arms turns into these big fat sausages, which happens because all the contours move directly up and down, and in the chase for more interesting contours, they end up overbuilding. This can happen in the body too, but it's more rare simply because we have so much room to work with in the body. More room means more opportunity to adjust as you go along. But if there is less clay needed in order for the part you were working on to become overbuilt, then watch out and make sure the contour moves as it should pretty much right from the get-go. This means turning your contours into forms sooner rather than later. I find that turning contours into forms is the best way to explore and discover the directions of your contour, while at the same time building a sculpture that quickly begins to appear like your model. Let's take a quick second to talk about some updates that's been made lately to my Patreon page. A few months ago, I started putting out exclusive Patreon content, videos that you will only have access to if you are my supporter on Patreon. The first series we have embarked on is the Beginner's Guide to Figure Sculpture, which you are watching an excerpt of right now. We will cover how to sculpt a standing nude female figure in contrapposto in half-life size scale. I will cover everything from the armature, the sculpting, and eventually the mold making. This will be your one-stop for all the answers you'll need for sculpting a standing nude figure. Whether you sculpt from life or from photo reference, we will cover how to work from both. One video will be released on the first Thursday of every month. The videos will be longer and more in-depth than what you're used to seeing here on YouTube, around 30 to 45 minutes each. It will all be real-time footage, no time lapses, and I will do my best to use a very linear process with clearly defined steps, making it both easier to follow and easier to do on your own. Any patron pledging $5 or more will get access to the videos. I'm excited to finally be putting out exclusive Patreon content to my Patreon supporters whose support is greatly appreciated. So check out my Patreon page to watch the full video by clicking the link in the description below. As opposed to the very beginning of this sculpture, the pieces of clay that I apply have gotten smaller and smaller. The pieces of clay I put on stands, or should stand at least, in relationship to the decision that I'm making. Later in the video, you'll see me build on the contour of the upper back, and when I'm doing this, I will be using larger pieces of clay to get the job done quickly and efficiently. But while working on more developed areas where the adjustments that need to be made are smaller, I work with smaller pieces of clay. If you enjoyed the video and want to learn sculpture from me, check out my Patreon page. I give feedback and critiques on people's work, and we talk about whatever you need help with in your sculpting endeavors. And right now, there is exclusive sculpting content on my Patreon page. The first series we have embarked on is the Beginner's Guide to Figure Sculpture. I'm super excited to finally be creating exclusive content for Patreon, and I hope you will be too, and we'll take a look. The link to my Patreon is in the description below. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for a new video next Thursday. Hit the subscribe button and the bell to be notified whenever a new video comes out. If you enjoyed the video, click the like button and share with your friends and family. It helps me out a lot. Thank you for watching, stay creative, and I hope to see you in the next one.